Welcome to Beast the Odds. I am Muntradamus. Thank you for joining me tonight. A couple headlines that we should talk about before we jump into the debate with Club Fantasy FFL on 3 quarterbacks that are going to ruin your season if you draft them. First, Carlos Hyde. Nate Taylor of The Athletic continues to say that Carlos Hyde is on the verge of being cut. That is just absolutely ridiculous. The guy's in love with Darwin Thompson, just like every single sheep fantasy expert. Carlos Hyde is the only physical running back the Chiefs have. This Saturday night, it is Carlos Hyde night. Get your tickets. Make sure you watch him, because Hyde is going to show everyone that he is the physical beast running back on the Chiefs. Damian Williams is the in-between guy, and Darwin is the third stringer who will get a few touches here or there. Darwin's been playing against nothing but third stringers. Expect that to end that success he has when he gets hit by big starting NFL defensive players. Other news, Melvin Gordon. Do not worry about Melvin. Melvin is going to be with the Chargers this season. It is not a similar situation that Le'Veon Bell had. Le'Veon Bell had the option. Melvin Gordon, if he sits out this entire season, he's in the exact same situation next season. So Melvin Gordon is going to play. And don't worry about Zeke either. The Cowboys know they need to pay Zeke in order to win. Jerry Jones has the money. It's going to be there. And Antonio Brown, he'll be Antonio Brown. He'll get his numbers. Late second round, still potential. But in the third round, he's a great value pick. With that being said, get the Beast Dome draft strategy. Antonio Brown's not part of the draft strategy. We got a different strategy for the second and third round. Don't draft like a sheep. Don't just draft the best player available. Actually have a strategy. The Beast Dome draft strategy is free. You can see the promo codes on either side to get that. With that being said, enjoy Beast the Odds.
Are you ready, Beast Dome Nation? Muntradamus.
Welcome to Beast the Odds. I am Muntradamus. It is Wednesday, August 21st. We are heading closer to the fantasy football season, but tonight we have a debate with Josh from Club Fantasy FFL on 3 quarterbacks that are going to bust your fantasy football league. But Josh thinks the other side. Josh, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned right after this. In 2013, no expert ranked Josh Gordon higher than myself. He finished with over 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. Let's throw in Deshaun Jackson, who came back to life with 1,300 plus yards. In 2014, it was Mike Evans who I ranked higher than every expert his rookie season, as well as predicting the comeback year for Steve Smith Sr., aka Triple S. Golden Tate and Jeremy Maclin were keys to the VIP draft guide that year as well. In 2015, it was Brandon Marshall, Doug Baldwin, Michael Crabtree, and James Jones who outscored Randall Cobb. Show me any fantasy expert analysis site that can compete with that. So here we are. We're coming closer to the fantasy football season. You need your quarterback to be beast. Josh, we're going to start with 3 QBs that you feel are going to be QB1. I'm going to have you defend them first because the people need to know why they should even consider these guys. So at number 9, your quarterback is KYLER Murray. Tell the people why they should draft KYLER Murray.
Well, KYLER Murray already has a familiarity with the air raid offense. I mean, just look back at some of these college coaches that come into the NFL. They don't always succeed. I mean, we've seen Chip Kelly being the most recent. Steve Spurrier flopped. There's been a slew of others. But if you look at Chip Kelly in his first year, just look at Nick Foles. Nobody knew who the hell he was, and he had 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. You bring in someone like KYLER Murray, who has the athleticism, he can throw from the pocket. He racks up rushing yards. And you look at some other rookie quarterbacks that fit his prototype. RG3 in 2012, Russell Wilson 2012, Cam Newton 2011, even Dak Prescott in 2016 was QB6. These are all players that accumulate rushing yards. Kyler Murray has the ability to do that. If Cliff Kingsbury can get that Cardinals offense even to around 70 offensive plays a game, Murray has the ability to throw for at least 3,400 yards, 23 touchdowns, and can tack on another 605 touchdowns rushing. That should give him at least the top 12 ceiling. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. I understand the risk. He is a rookie. Nobody likes to bet big on rookies, especially in the 8th, 9th round, kind of where he's going, which, depending on my league size, I'll probably pair him with like a Kirk Cousins who's going a lot later, who I know is going to throw for 4,000 yards, at least 28 touchdowns. There's at least some stability there. But you can't deny the upside that Kyler Murray brings just based on his familiarity with that offense and his ability and feel in the pocket. And again, I understand how bad that Cardinals offensive line is. God, it is terrible. The Oakland Raiders destroyed them in the second preseason game. So I get it, but they're also being very vanilla in the preseason. They don't want to show their hand. Chip Kelly did the exact same thing with the Eagles when he took over in year one. There's an element of surprise that comes with that. Kyler Murray, he was the number 1 overall pick. He's going to see a lot of action. David Johnson, he has the number 1 running back behind him. They don't utilize tight ends at all, so I'm not worried about that. But they're going to throw the football to the wide receivers. Larry Fitzgerald's a legend. He's reliable. And David Johnson has the ability to go for 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards easy. And when you have those types of security blankets, it makes your transition in the league so much easier.
All right, well, we're going to make this a little more in-depth because you brought David Johnson to this. But before we get into David Johnson, I want to talk about Kyler Murray because a lot of the examples you use are based off of other quarterbacks, but we can't look at other quarterbacks. We got to look at this situation right here. The receivers that Kyler Murray has, Larry Fitzgerald, the guy's over the hill. He's more or less just a possession receiver who can go 5-6 yards, run that slant route. Sure, he's a good security blanket. But Christian Kirk, he is not a number 1 receiver. Number 1 corners, number 2 corners, those guys are going to lock him up. Christian Kirk's not going to get open. Fitzgerald's not going to get downfield. Kyler Murray is afraid to get hit. I don't know if you've seen him this preseason, but the guy is falling over before anyone comes to make contact with him. And
that's smart quarterback play, though.
It's going to be like that in the regular season. He was dominating college guys. These are not college boys. These are NFL defensive tackles that are coming in and they're ready to eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But most important of all, when I watch Kyler Murray this preseason, something that has me very concerned is his awareness. When he comes to the line of scrimmage, he's not Tom Brady pointing to the right, pointing to the left, pointing out the mic. He just comes up to the line, hike. He doesn't even scan the defense. The guy is not an NFL ready quarterback. The Cardinals are gonna go 3 and out often. They're gonna be punting often, and that's gonna tie into David Johnson, where I don't see David Johnson being worth a 1st round pick. Probably in my opinion, I wouldn't even take him round 2. The Cardinals are gonna be horrible. They're gonna be punting all season long, and drafting Kyler Murray as a QB1 is a waste of a draft pick in my opinion.
Look, you can make the argument, and I get it. I completely understand. When you're looking at your top tier guys at any position, you're ultimately trying to minimize risk. Is there risk with Kyler Murray? Of course. There's risk with any rushing quarterback because they are putting their bodies on the line by opening themselves up to more hits. But in fantasy football, and I know you know this, you've been doing this from an analysis standpoint longer than I have, rushing quarterbacks generate more fantasy points over the long haul because they rack up more rushing yards, which 10 rushing yards gets you 1 point, whereas 10 passing yards doesn't get you 1 point. So when you're able to add that element to your game, you are you're moving up those rankings there.
I understand that, but Kyler Murray's a small guy. He can't take NFL hits.
They both have baseball backgrounds. So what they're doing is they're turning their backs to avoid getting crushed because they're smaller. They're not someone like a Big Ben or a Jameis or a Cam Newton who are bigger guys that can take those types of hits and sustain them over the long haul.
The thing also with KYLER is Patrick Peterson is suspended the first 6 games of the year. And why does that matter? Because the Cardinals are probably going to start out losing a lot of football games without their best player. So like late in the season, let's just say they start out 2-4, hypothetically. That'd be a great situation for them. Later on in the year, when they're out of the playoffs, Kyler Murray's not going to be looking to take hits. He's going to be sliding off. And first of all, the Cardinals are going to get blown out in a lot of games this year. It's just going to be ugly to own any Arizona Cardinals. Is garbage time really how you want to get your fantasy points from your starting quarterback? It's too important of a position to rely on a guy who's going to be running the ball and not getting enough passing yards week to week.
Well, so let me ask you this then. When you're talking about your quarterbacks, are you somebody that is willing to wait at the position to secure value or take the quarterback early?
It depends year to year. This year, there is value plays that I do like, and you can get the draft guide for free. Just send a DM or go to beastdome.com to see who that quarterback is. But regardless, I am not aiming at KYLER. I'm not aiming at the next 2 guys you're talking about either. I can't name drop him on this episode. But I will say Kyler Murray's not the guy you want. It's just going to be a frustrating season. A lot of 3-and-outs and a lot of punting the football. Let's move to the second quarterback on the list. He's your number 10 quarterback. And in my opinion, this team will be lucky to score 10 points in one game. Josh, tell us why they should take Josh Allen from the Bills.
Well, first off, his ADP right now is like QB 22, which is just absurd. You look at him from the final weeks of the season, weeks 12. We do our scoring to week 16. So from week 12 to week 16, he was QB 5. If you stretch it out to week 17, those final 5-6 weeks of the season, he actually was better down the stretch than Patrick Mahomes was. And it's all because of what he brings to the table from a rushing perspective. Just in 10 starts last year, he had 631 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. Again, when I'm looking at my QB1s, if I'm going to wait at the position, these are the types of guys that I want. I want guys that generate rushing ability. Josh Stallion or Josh Allen, whatever you want to call him, he brings that to the table. The one thing that I like about him, and you see this comparison a lot between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson because of the fact they're both running quarterbacks and they can't hit the broadside of a barn standing 3 feet in front of it. But Josh Allen brings the deep ball to the game, whereas Lamar Jackson struggles with that. Josh Allen threw 19.7% of his passes, almost 20%, more than 20 yards down the field. His average depth of target last year was over 11 yards, which would have led the league last year had he thrown enough passes to qualify. What the Bills did was they brought in guys that fit his profile. Robert Foster last year with him, weeks 12 through 16, was wide receiver 15, had an ADOT of over 22. They bring in John Brown, who last year was wide receiver 22 when Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback. Flacco has a bigger arm. John Brown was 5th last year in average depth of target at 16 yards. These are players that fit that profile, and John Brown is going well after the wide receiver 50. He's basically being drafted as a wide receiver 6 that you can get in late rounds that has home run ability. These are guys that not only do you want to target in best ball, but you can't tell me that's not a solid flex play when you're wide receiver 22 that can get down the football field, which fits Josh Allen's profile. Zay Jones even, who was god-awful his rookie year and was very up and down last year, was wide receiver 25 weeks 13 through 16. So when you offer not only that rushing ability that Josh Allen brings, but also the deep ball ability, just stretching out his entire season last year, he wouldn't have even hit 3,000 passing yards, but because of that rushing ability, he still would have been a top 10 quarterback. I have no doubt that he can do that again. And again, you're looking at a rookie to a second-year guy. There's always going to be some type of improvement. We know what Josh Allen's weaknesses is. It's accuracy in the short passing game. But guess what? Cam Newton's only had 3 seasons in his entire career where he's had over 60% passing. And he's been a fairly reliable fantasy quarterback year in and year out. So Josh Allen has the ability to do it. I don't like him much from a pro perspective. Like, if he was a quarterback of my favorite team, I'd be like, oh, crap, this sucks. But from a fantasy perspective, getting him where he's going well after the 12th round presents a ton of value. So that's why I like Allen, and I have him in my top 10 because, again, I like the upside that he brings to the table.
I'll give you credit for being very bold and putting Josh Allen as a top 10 QB, but I watched a little too much Josh Allen football last season, and every time I watched him, he was throwing balls way over wide receivers' heads. He's throwing balls in the fifth row and on an out pattern. His accuracy,
he's got a cannon, no doubt.
He's got a cannon. You talk about his deep ball attempts. It's not like he actually completed those deep ball attempts. He threw them, but
he only completed a little over 30% of them.
Yeah, but in reality, it really felt like is 5%. It's not fun owning a quarterback that's going to go 3 and out often. What I do like about Allen is he's able to run for a first down. It'll be 3rd and 3, and he'll pick up those 3 yards by himself. And you're like, all right, new set of downs for the Bills. Maybe they can score a touchdown. But then the very next play, he'll do something boneheaded, like take a 12-yard sack, or he'll miss a wide open receiver. And they brought in Cole Beasley this year, who in my opinion is probably the safest receiver of his bunch, even though he doesn't fit that long ball profile. But Beasley and Allen are having a nice little connection. But John Brown, the guy's what, 5'9", 5'8"? There's no way the only way Josh Allen's going to hit him is if he throws a deep ball that's so far out in front of everyone that John Brown can run and catch it. But there's no other route that Brown and Allen can run that are going to be on the same page. So to me, that's a waste of moving. Zay Jones and Allen leads Zay Jones into traffic time after time. I almost saw Zay Jones get his head knocked off this preseason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
that poor kid may not survive the season.
Yeah, so to have a quarterback that's just like a nightmare, you didn't say, but you didn't want him to be the quarterback of your NFL team. I don't want him to be the quarterback of my fantasy team. There's going to be too many goose eggs in there. You need your quarterback to be consistent week in and week out. And a quarterback that runs like him but will only throw for 150 yards, to me, that's not even on the table as a fantasy option.
See, you talk about goose eggs. His rushing ability gives him such a solid floor that you're not going to have that kind of issue. Whereas if a quarterback, we'll say even Aaron Rodgers, who really isn't that mobile, if he goes against the defense that absolutely shuts him down and he only throws for, say, 150 yards and chucks up 2 interceptions, he's only got you 2 points.
Talking about Aaron Rodgers?
No, I'm just saying, in the event that something like that were to happen.
Right.
Because there's not as much from a rushing perspective that he brings. But if Josh Allen goes out there and throws for 150 yards, 2 interceptions, but then rushes for 70 yards and a touchdown, I still have 13 points. That to me is the difference.
70 yards and a rushing touchdown is a great performance for him. It's more like you're going to get like 50 to 60 yards on a daily basis from him.
But still, that's still a floor that not a lot of non-mobile quarterbacks offer.
Yeah, but he doesn't offer the passing yards. So let's say he does 150 yards with no interceptions. So that's 6 points.
That's 6 points.
And then he rushes for 60 yards, another 6 points. So that's 12 points. So that's like a 300-yard passing performance with no touchdowns. You can get better quarterbacks than that on a weekly basis. 200 yards and a passing touchdown. Basically every quarterback should get that. But Josh Allen, no guarantee. But Josh Allen, no guarantee with those stats, the way he throws a football. To me, he's too inconsistent.
To me, it's all in how he runs the football. I don't care how he throws it. He runs it, which keeps his floor high.
You draft a quarterback to throw the football.
But if I'm drafting him in the 14th round, then it's all about the value.
It's not a player you want to depend on in your starting lineup. Last but not least, the grand finale. He won MVP not too long ago. He was in the Super Bowl not too long ago. I love his haircut this year. But Cam Newton to you is the number 11 quarterback. Tell us why.
I think it's hilarious that you're bringing him up because I've had people tell me that I'm too low on Cam Newton. So this is going to be fun.
All right.
So here's the thing. When you look at Cam as a starting quarterback in fantasy, he started off hot. He was top 10 each of his first 3 seasons. comes in 2014, absolutely crashed. Ever since then, he's been an every other year quarterback. 2015 was the MVP year. 2016, he fell. 2017, he was back up the top 10. Last year was QB 13. Those down years coincided with his 3 lowest seasons of rushing attempts. So Cam's value, he's another guy that, again, relies very heavily on his rushing ability. He's also coming off a shoulder injury, which is now the second time he's had this same injury. Last year, he was on pace in Norv Turner's offense for the very first time. He was on pace to set a career high in passing attempts at 538, which really in this day and age is not very high. He only has 2 seasons in his career where he's had more than 500 passing attempts. So he needs to generate those rushing yards to be a viable starting quarterback in fantasy. Last year, he had only 4 rushing touchdowns, which was his fewest in his entire career. Norv Turner he's the type of guy that he's going to run one guy, and that one guy is Christian McCaffrey. We saw it last year. Through 16 weeks, McCaffrey was on the snap count for 97% of their offensive snaps, which is just unheard of at the running back position, but he does it all. With Cam Newton, his percentage of design runs has decreased each of the last 3 years. So you're looking at a guy that right now needs to throw the football to stay elevated in that kind of upper echelon. But he still offers enough with his legs to keep him as sort of a fringe QB1 in 12-team leagues. I mean, last year, if he doesn't miss those last 2 games, he's a top 12 quarterback, and it's really not out of the realm of possibility for him to be on the QB 11 radar. So this, to me, was kind of that compromise, because I don't know that he's going to be that top 5 guy that we've seen in the past, but I also don't think he's going to bottom out and be like a bottom, 16, 17, 18 kind of guy.
I'm going with this 16, 17, 18, maybe even quarterback 20 this year, and I'll tell you why. Look at Cam's best years. He was throwing to Greg Olsen, of course, who's no longer the same tight end he once was after all the foot injuries. And his number 1 receiver was Kelvin Benjamin, a big 6'5" body. And then once Benjamin was gone, Funchess kind of took over that role as the lead receiver, another 6'4", 6'5" body. So his best days were throwing to big guys. Now he's got little Curtis Samuel, under 6 feet, DJ Moore, no muscle at all. Both these guys have no muscle at all. Like, these are tiny.
Oh, I don't know about that. DJ Moore's a beast, man.
DJ
Homeboy was breaking a ton of tackles.
What, in preseason against arm tackles?
Last year. He was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL last year in forced missed tackles.
And how many receiving yards did he end up with? Like 500 on the season?
He ended up with almost 800, but his downside was he only had 2 touchdowns.
So
that was DJ Moore's problem.
Regardless,
Curtis Samuel was like the flip side. He couldn't break tackles, couldn't generate yards after the catch, but had a ton of contested catches because him and Cam just weren't on the same page. But his route running is far and beyond what DJ Moore.
Regardless, these guys are not starting wide receivers on winning football teams. We're talking winning football teams here. DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, those guys are not going to get the job done for Cam Newton. Cam Newton's got no targets to throw to. The tight end game, yes, Olsen's back. Yes, Ian Thomas is nice, but these are not superstar weapons. So he's going to throw the ball to Christian McCaffrey, of course, a lot, because that's what he's got to do. And McCaffrey, could he repeat what he did last year? I'm going to say no. I already heard reports that they want to get another guy involved in the goal line situation. In fact, I really love Cameron Artis-Payne. He is so underrated, and he could easily be this year's biggest sleeper in fantasy football. If he gets his opportunity, he will show up everyone. But regardless, Cam's got no one to throw to. He's taken so many hits over the years. He doesn't want to keep running the ball like he once was. The guy took too many hits to the head. Panthers offense are going to go 3 and out a lot. Not as much as the Bills, not as much as the Cardinals, but their offense is still below average. And to me, I don't want a quarterback on a below average football team. How it all plays out. You have your takes, I have my takes, and in about 3 weeks, the season will begin. You pumped? You ready for it, Josh?
Can't wait, man.
Can't
In the
wait.
immortal words of Bart Scott. Can't wait.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Well, thank you for joining me on Beast the Odds. We'll do this again. Any last words you want to say to everyone?
Feel free to follow Club Fantasy FFL. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Club Fantasy FFL. You can always check out our website as well. It's www.clubfantasyffl.com. Of course, you can always follow me on Twitter for some of my takes at the number one Hudsonian, HUDSONIAN. Thanks a lot for having me, man.
Love it. Thank you for joining everyone tonight. Beast the Odds. We'll be back soon. Beast.